Hello and welcome. Today we're exploring Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari, a fascinating book that condenses 70,000 years of human history into a gripping narrative. Harari's central question is simple: how did an unremarkable ape become the ruler of the world? In response, he divides human history into four major parts: the cognitive revolution, the agricultural revolution, the unification of humankind, and the scientific revolution. Each of these turning points transformed how Homo sapiens lived and cooperated, leading us step by step to the complex global civilization we have today. This summary will walk through those key eras and ideas. Part 1. The Cognitive Revolution. Harari uses this term for the moment around 70,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens developed extraordinary new mental abilities. Early humans already had big brains, but now something changed in how we think and communicate. Harari argues that sapiens' secret weapon was the ability to imagine and believe in things that exist purely in our collective imagination. In other words, we gained the capacity for fiction, for shared myths, legends, religions, nationhood, money, and other abstract concepts. This might sound trivial, but it was revolutionary. It meant thousands of people could cooperate flexibly in large groups by rallying around common ideas and stories, even when those people were strangers. No other animal can do this. For example, no chimpanzee can convince 1,000 other chimps to all work together by talking about a mythical banana god or a nation of chimps, but humans can. Only Homo sapiens can discuss things we've never seen or touched, like spirits, laws, or fictional heroes, and treat them as real. These shared beliefs, what Harari calls imagined realities, became the glue for cooperation. Tribes could bond over sacred myths. Later, millions of strangers could obey the same religion or national laws, all because they collectively believed in them. Ever since the cognitive revolution, humans have been living in a dual reality: the physical reality around us and the imagined reality of our shared stories and beliefs. This insight is thought-provoking. It suggests that much of human society, from gods to money, exists in our minds, yet these fictions have immense power in the real world. Harari believes this cognitive leap is what allowed Homo sapiens to leap to the top of the food chain and outcompete all other human species. Sapiens spread across the globe, innovating, cooperating in large numbers, and perhaps inadvertently driving creatures like the Neanderthals and many large animals to extinction. It's a dramatic start to our story, an upgrade in thinking that set the stage for everything to come. The idea that our superpower is fiction is both exciting and a bit unsettling. Harari essentially says that stories rule the world, an insight that many find illuminating. It can be controversial too. After all, calling fundamental things like money or human rights imaginary doesn't mean they're bad, only that they rely on collective belief. But it does make you reflect on how our societies are built on shared ideas. Part 2. The Agricultural Revolution. Fast forward to about 10,000 years ago. Humans all over the world began to settle down and farm, domesticating wheat, rice, corn, and cattle. Traditionally, history classes celebrate this as a great leap forward: the start of civilization, cities, and plenty of food. But Harari offers a controversial twist. He famously calls the agricultural revolution history's biggest fraud. Why such a harsh verdict? Because although farming increased the sheer number of humans, more food can support more people, it did not improve the daily life of the average person at first. In fact, it often made life harder. Harari argues that early farmers worked longer, more grueling hours than hunter-gatherers, toiling in the fields from dawn to dusk. Their diet actually became worse. Instead of a variety of wild foods, they ate mostly starchy crops like wheat or rice, which meant poorer nutrition. Farming communities settled in permanent villages, which led to crowded living conditions where disease could spread more easily. And because crops could fail due to weather or pests, farmers lived with the constant worry of famine. Paradoxically, though more children were surviving, individuals arguably led less healthy, more stressful lives than their foraging ancestors. Harari even points out that skeletal remains show ancient farmers suffered from ailments like slip discs and arthritis. Their bodies paid the price for field labor. In essence, the first peasants traded a relatively free and varied life for one of hard work and uncertainty. This leads to one of Harari's witty observations. We did not domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated us. Think about it. Within a few millennia, humans in many areas did little but tend wheat or rice or potatoes, spreading these crop plants across the globe. Those plants thrived by getting us to care for them, while the humans themselves ended up stuck in place, breaking our backs, pulling weeds, and hauling water. It's a sobering perspective. Who was the master and who was the servant in this new farming lifestyle? Harari's term, history's biggest fraud, is meant to shock us into rethinking the standard narrative of progress. To be clear, Harari doesn't deny that agriculture eventually led to cities, writing, science, and all the achievements of civilization. Rather, he emphasizes a trade-off. In the short term, agriculture multiplied the quantity of humans, but may have reduced the quality of life for many individuals. More food allowed populations to explode, which led to complex societies, but it also meant that common people often lived tough lives under elite rulers, kings, aristocrats, who took a share of the harvest. Domesticated animals, too, often fared worse, being penned and exploited on farms. Harari's take on the agricultural revolution is certainly thought-provoking. It challenges the rosy idea that more food equals progress by highlighting the hidden costs paid by our ancestors and the environment. Many readers find this perspective eye-opening, though some historians debate the extent of suffering in early farming societies. It's a good reminder that progress for society isn't always progress for the individuals living through it. Part 3. The unification of humankind. Now we leap ahead to the era when human kingdoms, trade networks, and religions started knitting the world together. After the agricultural revolution, human societies grew larger and more complex. Harari observes that over millennia, countless isolated cultures gradually merged into larger units, ultimately leading to the interconnected global civilization we know today. This part of the book examines the grand forces that unified disparate peoples, namely money, empires, and religions. Why these three? Think about money first. Money is a kind of shared fiction, just pieces of paper or metal, or digits in a computer. Yet, almost everyone believes in its value. This universal trust in money allows strangers to cooperate via trade. A farmer in one country can sell grain to a merchant from another because both accept the same currency and economic story. Harari describes money as a system of mutual trust, effectively, a global myth that facilitates cooperation on a massive scale. It's amazing and a bit abstract, but it works. Commerce has been a unifying force at creating interdependence among distant groups of people. Next, empires. For the last 2,500 years, empires have been the most common form of political organization. An empire occurs when one kingdom absorbs others, bringing many nations under a single rule. While empires often spread through conquest, they also spread culture, laws, and ideas, unifying diverse groups under a common framework. At their height, empires like Rome, the Islamic caliphates, or the Chinese dynasties governed huge swaths of humanity. Harari notes that for centuries, the majority of humans lived in some empire. This imperial pattern has blended populations and traditions, moving us toward a more homogenized global culture over time. Harari even argues that, despite their brutality, empires sometimes contributed to art, science, and order by mixing cultures, a point that might spark debate. Finally, religion. Harari identifies universal religions, belief systems like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, as another great unifier. Unlike local tribal cults, these world religions aimed to be universal truths, spreading across language and ethnic boundaries. When millions of people believe in the same law of morality or worship the same deity, they form a kind of moral community, even if they've never met. Religion has motivated cooperation on a civilizational scale. It provided shared myths about the meaning of life and the universe, helping large societies hold together under common values. The unification of humankind section of Sapiens essentially shows how cultural evolution drew humanity together. Over thousands of years, small tribes coalesced into bigger tribes, which became kingdoms and empires, and now we're part of a single global network. Harari even suggests that history has an arrow, pointing towards unity. In modern times, with capitalist globalization, we are effectively on the way to one global empire. Nations are economically interdependent, information flows instantaneously worldwide, and challenges like climate change or pandemics remind us that all humans face a common fate. This idea, that humankind is merging into one global culture, is fascinating and perhaps hopeful, though it can also raise questions. Are we losing cultural diversity? Is a unified world more peaceful or just as turbulent? Harari doesn't claim unity is good or bad outright. He simply points out the trend. Money, empires, and religions have been the engines pulling us toward a single global civilization. It's an inspiring thought that we're all part of one big human story, but also a bit sobering. If our fates are intertwined, it means we collectively bear responsibility for our planet and each other. Harari's discussion here is often seen as important because it frames globalization in the deep context of history. Part 4, the Scientific Revolution. The final leg of Sapiens covers the last 500 years, a blink of an eye in the grand scheme, but an era of explosive growth in human power. So what changed? Harari's answer: science, paired with technology and industrial capitalism, gave humanity the tools to dominate nature and unlock staggering energies. But crucially, this scientific breakthrough happened when cultures began to admit we don't know everything. Unlike medieval societies or ancient religions that claimed to have all the answers, modern science started with the bold idea that there were things we didn't know, and that we could research and discover new knowledge. Harari highlights this willingness to embrace ignorance as a turning point. Scientists formulated theories and tested them, rather than relying on ancient texts or pure tradition. This attitude led to remarkable advances. In a few centuries, humans developed steam engines, electricity, vaccines, computers, and even space travel. Harari notes that science made Europe powerful. It was a driving force behind the rise of European empires, whose explorers and armies were backed by scientific knowledge and industrial technology. The scientific revolution also went hand in hand with the rise of capitalism and the modern economy. Banks and governments funded voyages of discovery and scientific research, expecting that new knowledge would lead to new profits and territories. And it often did. For instance, the discovery of antibiotics saved countless lives. The invention of airplanes shrank the world. Industrial agriculture can feed billions, all science-driven changes with huge societal impact. Yet Harari isn't simply celebrating progress. He also asks a piercing question: are we happier now than in the past? After all our advancements, Harari suggests that people today are not necessarily happier than our ancestors were. We have cars and smartphones, but that doesn't automatically equal satisfaction or meaning. This claim is a bit controversial. How do you measure happiness across centuries? But it makes you think. Harari points out that, surprisingly, there's been little research into historical happiness. We tend to measure growth in terms of population, empires, or technology, not in how all this affects daily contentment. It's a reminder that bigger and faster doesn't always mean better for the human soul. The finale of Sapiens is quite dramatic. Harari titled his last chapter, "The End of Homo sapiens," because he speculates that in the coming decades or centuries, we might upgrade ourselves into something entirely new. Thanks to scientific advances, humans are beginning to tinker with genetic engineering, bioengineering, and artificial intelligence. We may overcome old age and death, become immortal, create cyborgs, or even entirely inorganic life forms. In short, science might enable us to become gods, or destroy ourselves in the process. Harari metaphorically describes humans as now wielding divine powers of creation and destruction. It's a thought-provoking and slightly eerie conclusion. Harari doesn't give firm answers about the future, but he raises the big questions. What do we want to become, now that we can engineer life? After conquering the world, what's next for Sapiens? This wrap-up leaves readers with a sense of wonder and caution. Many people find this conclusion especially intriguing or unsettling. It really makes you sit back and ponder the long-term fate of our species. Harari's willingness to venture into these speculative territories is part of what makes Sapiens more than just a history book. It's also a meditation on our future. In summary, Sapiens takes us on an incredible journey, from the cognitive revolution, where imagination gave us power, through the agricultural revolution, where we built societies at the cost of some hardship, into the age of empires, money, and religion, which unified humanity, and finally the scientific revolution, which granted us immense might and a looming identity crisis about our future. Harari's storytelling is vivid and pulls together insights from history, biology, and economics into a big-picture narrative of humankind. It's both educational and thought-provoking, offering plenty of aha moments about why the world is the way it is. The book has made a huge impact worldwide. Since its release, *Sapiens* has become an international bestseller, translated into dozens of languages. It's been praised as mind-thrilling and provocative by reviewers, and even notable figures like Bill Gates have listed it among their favorite books. Beyond the accolades, what's important is how the book resonates with readers. It encourages us to take a step back from our daily lives and consider the entire sweep of human history, to appreciate our triumphs, like art, science, and global cooperation, but also to question our narratives, like whether more growth is always good, or how myths shape our lives. *Sapiens* sparks conversations about everything from the role of capitalism to the future of artificial intelligence. Ultimately, Harari's voice in *Sapiens* is that of a curious guide and occasionally an opinionated provocateur. Whether or not you agree with all his arguments, the book succeeds in its mission to educate and intrigue. It leaves us with a richer understanding of our species' past and a keen awareness that the future is in our hands. Reflecting on Harari's insights, we might ask ourselves, are the stories we believe in today, like money or nations or human rights, taking us in the direction we want to go? What might the next chapter of the human story be? These are the kinds of big questions *Sapiens* inspires. It's the rare history book that doesn't just tell us what happened. It also challenges us to think about what it means and what comes next. And that is perhaps its greatest significance. Thank you for listening to this summary. Hopefully, it's given you a taste of the key ideas in *Sapiens*. Whether you find Harari's views enlightening or contentious, there's no doubt this book offers a sweeping perspective on who we are as a species. From apes with ideas, to farmers and believers, to masters of science, and beyond, the story of *Sapiens* is truly the story of all of us.